Welcome to my bookish goals of 2025 list. I've got 5 things I want to focus on this year, and then I've included a few personal ones at the end if you're interested in that. I am definitely a goal setter. I think having something to aim for is really helpful in giving my day-to-day an intentionality. And I find even the act of writing down goals gets me in touch with what I really want out of life. I did not go back and review what my goals were for last year before setting the new ones for this year, but I know I'm in such a different place now than I was even a year ago that I think my goals are going to be a little different than I've done in years past. Bringing me to the number 1, which was a no-brainer, honestly. Read fewer books. Yeah, you heard me. BookTube channel. Supposed to create content by reading books. I want to read fewer of them. I feel like ever since I got into creating content, or heck, even when I was just becoming a bookseller or joining the online book blogging community, where I realized that if you wrote a review about a first book in a series, it got a lot more attention than like the 5th book in a series. So I already started shifting my focus towards starting more books, consuming more things, increasing like the breadth of things I knew stuff about. And it's only been within the last couple of years where I've felt burnt out, kind of. What really hit home was figuring out how many series I would need to restart because I let too much time lapse between when I read the first couple to now. Over 50, maybe even over 100. The number is astronomical and it makes me very uncomfortable. I've essentially wasted an entire year of my reading life on that inefficiency. And not because I was following my mood and being happy with reading and just choosing books that gave me joy. No, it was kind of curated. It was based on a schedule. It was serving projects and buddy reads and things that weren't driving from the inside, externally motivated, if you will. My hope is that by intentionally choosing to read fewer books this year, it will allow me to prioritize a little better, and it'll give me a deeper connection to the books that I do choose to pick up. We're talking, like, normally I set my goal between 80 and 100, and I've been hitting 100 on average most years. I want to get down to like 50. Maybe 60 if you count in all the random nonfiction that I read. But I'm going to have a real moment with 50 books. I'm hoping what it'll do is slow down that impatience that I feel when I'm currently reading something to get to the next thing on my list. If I can only read 50, then I got time. I got plenty of time to sit with this book right now. I've also been experimenting with book journaling, where I'm taking kind of notes to myself while I'm reading a book, just to kind of feel more absorbed with it, if you will, and to give myself permission to take more time. Also, there's this thing like where I feel like if I have a moment where I'm cleaning or commuting or just with downtime in general, that I must always have a book going. And I'd like to get away from that a little bit. Like, you know, sometimes quiet is okay. So that's my biggest goal. We'll see how it goes. It's to simplify life, and it's to, like, I've remembered what the whole point of reading is, and I'm trying to channel the child version of myself who had no problem just sitting with one thing at a time. Goal number 2, finish more series than I start. A version of this one shows up every single year, but my thought process is that I have a whole bunch of series going right now, over 20, for series that I am so excited about. Like, I really want to read these things. I am in it. I am not just forcing myself to finish. I am lacking the time to read them all. So why would I bring something else into the mix? And I'm not saying I'm not going to start a new series throughout this entire year. But what I would like is if I start that series, it's with intentionality. It's not based on a challenge, like a random draw having me pick one, but rather it's because I bring it into the rotation and it's my intention to have a real moment with it and read it from start to finish within a reasonable time frame, like a couple months. So I'm hoping to have a really wild swing in numbers, one I have never had before, where my number of completed series vastly outweighs my number of started series. It hasn't happened in like 10 years. I went nose to the grind in 2014 and it took an entire year to read myself down from 130 outstanding series. I DNF'd a bunch of them too. But see, I don't want this to be a job. This is supposed to be enjoyable. So I'm taking that inner completionist drive and applying it in a way that's not numerically driven, but more like sustainable. Goal number 3, only buy the 100% top priority titles to add to my collection. Like, we got to talk about book buying. I've been going hog wild. I found Pango Books. I took all the other social media apps off my phone and went digitally minimal, so really the only thing I could do was browse books. So I bought lots of books. But the thing is I am so tired of filming these unhauls with like 100 books that I spent time and money bringing into this house. I want a beautifully curated collection where every single thing on my shelves is something that I have read and loved or that I am super excited to read. So the goal is to only be bringing home those titles that I would be actively excited to pick up immediately. And it's not like I even have to think very hard about this. There's no doubt in my mind which titles I am so excited to read and which ones I'm not. When I look at it online and I think about buying it, there's like a gut, like sparking joy feeling that I get when it's something that I'm super eager to get my hands on. Those are the only ones I should be allowed to bring home. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And no more of this like curating holes for hardcovers in series that I've read and loved that I'm trying to convert from paperback to hardcover. Such a time waste and a time suck, and I never end up satisfied with the condition of the copies that I get anyway. So we're done with that. I have a book haul coming up in a couple of weeks where I feel like I've mostly stuck to this, but it contains an order I did over Black Friday from Book Outlet, so it's not perfect. But setting the intention is a good first start. And especially with this new era of Read, Burn, Hoard, I am really loving seeing what my shelves look like after I get rid of the stuff that I'm just not excited to read. But you guys should understand more than anybody else on the planet that book collecting and book reading are two entirely different hobbies, and I'm hoping to fine-tune both. Goal number 4, read mostly owned books this year. This supports my first goal of reading fewer books because I feel like a lot of that urge to hurry comes from deadlines. The library is probably my worst culprit with that because a book pops up and says, oh, you've waited for like 6 months for this and now it's ready, snag it. And I think, oh, I'm not ready yet. Like I'm in the middle of something else. And I hit delay. Then it pops up again in like 7 days and I hit delay. And finally my willpower cracks and I end up checking it out. And then once you have it out, there's no luxury of reading at your own pace, especially if it's one that's been on hold for a really long time. So I'm trying to remove deadlines for myself. I have done a pretty good job at not requesting a ton of ARCs over the last year. And that's a trend I would like to continue going in to 2025. So as many deadlines as I can remove from myself, I think will exponentially increase how much I'm enjoying my reading. And I still haven't figured out buddy reads yet because I absolutely love reading with my patrons. I don't want to stop doing that, but no matter how carefully I try to schedule, inevitably one is starting when I'm not ready for it. And try to be a little more laissez-faire about that, and I end up missing an entire read, which is not good when you're the host. So that is something that I will be paying close attention to this year and trying to get in a better place with, because I'm still not sure what the answer is to that. I think the first thing is that I overcommit myself. I'm like, oh yeah, 3 buddy reads, I can do that. But yeah, I can only read at this pace, like 2 books a month right now. Maybe I should do the math. I'm a book person, not a math person. Actually, I really like math, but whatever. Goal number 5, nurture a practice of reading before bed. This is probably my favorite goal. This is the one that is for my soul. I used to do this all the time. I used to spend a couple hours before bed reading, before I had kids and 2 jobs. And but this is more than just a book related goal. It means I'm allowing myself to slow down at the end of a day. It means my devices are put away. It means that I've planned ahead a little and created space to live more intentionally. I always feel more at peace and connected to myself when I do these kind of rituals, these slow down rituals. And honestly, reading before bed is as close to meditation as I've been able to get, because it really does, you get impatient. The addictive device culture is so strong that when you try to sit down with something that's less stimulating, it's hard. Oh, it's hard to sit with it. So it's a practice for me of deep breath work, of really getting into a story and bringing a journal and being able to kind of take notes and write down thoughts. That extra little bit of interaction has been making it possible for me. And I am finding that on the nights when I'm not doing this, I feel so frantic and I miss the fact that I missed out on doing it. So that is my intention for the year. So that's all the bookish stuff, but I make personal goals too, and I thought they'd be fun to share. Personal goal number 1, which is still kind of a little bit bookish, is to write reviews for every book that I read in 2025. Which is great, because if I only read 50 books, then I have like half the amount of pressure on myself as I've had last year. Review writing has been hit or miss for me since I went from just book blogging and writing reviews on Goodreads to creating content for YouTube. Like, you only have the bandwidth for so much creativity, book discussion, whatever. And there's a lot of times where I've talked about a book so many times that I really don't want to sit and write out another review for it. It would actually make sense to write that first. Then when I'm talking, I wouldn't stumble over my words as much because I already know what I'm going to say. I already read the review. It's like scripting. Why would I not script? Anyway, I have a book journal from last year. Within it, I wrote a review tracker. And the pink ones are the only ones that got reviews written for them last year. You see, I got like New Year's resolution, I'm going to write reviews for everything near the beginning of the year, and then it like quickly faded out. And I have been looking really closely at what went wrong with that process. And one of the things is I was including a calendar. I was writing every single review in this little book, but then I was also writing placeholders for reviews. And so if I didn't get around to writing the review, then it's messing up my book journal. Like, look at all these blank pages. This is not what's supposed to happen. Look at how many books I have to go back and fill in those pages. It backfired. I thought having it all in one place would be great. And the thing is probably a lot more reviews got written organically as I was just going along. I'm like, oh, I have this journal with me. Let me write down some thoughts about the book I just read. But there are so many steps to actually getting the reviews from here to published on Goodreads. I have so many things that I've added in the process that it's too much friction. And it makes me feel like it takes too much time. And so I'm simplifying. Like, I used to have a whole mess of crap that I would publish with my reviews, and I don't think I'm going to take the time to do that. Also, it limits my review writing to being at the specific computer that I have all those templates on. So I'm changing it up this year. I'm figuring out a way to remove barriers to success, and I would like to write more reviews. I'm not going to keep them in a notebook. I think I'm going to do like a tear out method where I can, whoa, that's another thing. Whenever I write a review, it's a rough draft in here. But see, this is a perfectly preserved book. So I write a crappy rough draft. I hate the way it looks in here. And then suddenly I don't want to mess with it anymore because I've messed up my journal. I hope some of you can relate to this. Anyway, my new method, I have a brand new notebook where I am going to write the rough draft. As soon as the rough draft goes into the digital world, then I can tear the page out and throw it away and start with a nice, clean new book for the next one. New notebook. It's going to be great. I think it's going to work. But major goal for me, because review writing is the core of what got me started talking about books online. And it's important to me. That was goal number 6. I don't think I said that. Goal number 7, or goal number 2 of my personal goals. I wish I could remember what I said when I started number 6 or number 1. We're going to go with goal number 2 for my personal goals. Goal number 2, I want to complete my memory keeping project this year. I read 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman back in like February of last year, and he reinforced the idea of finitude and the fact that we are not going to be able to work on everything, and that we only make like meaningless progress on every little thing that we're trying to do. So we're far better off focusing on just one thing, which is also supported by Cal Newport's slow productivity, which I love. But that generated this massive, like, evaluating my entire life, trying to figure out what I wanted to focus on. And the thing that kept coming up more and more was pictures for my children. I want to preserve them, capture them, present them, keep them safe for my children. And that went above every single other random art project that I want to do. And so I hit it hard. I worked on it so much last year and made so much project progress, and I still have so much to go. I've done over 100 pages last year. I think like a stack like yay big. I've almost completely done one child. I have like a block of things I need to get for the other one, and then my oldest child, there's a big gap in years there where I need to catch him up. It's a lot of work, and it's been one of those projects that feels so overwhelming that it's almost discouraging. But little baby steps over time. What's the next action? Like, I know I'm not going to be able to complete this, but what can I do today? That's been really helpful. So that is my main creative goal for the year, and I'm really still intimidated by how much there is to do, but very motivated by seeing how much I've already done. Like, I took the time to put all of those in sheet protectors last week, that massive stack of 100 or so that I've done, and it's beautiful. They are absolutely beautiful. It's worth every little bit of effort, and it's important to me. So word of the wise, if you haven't had kids yet and you plan to have kids, like, start from the beginning. Maybe not within the first 6 months or so, because you're going to be so tired and overwhelmed. The last thing you need to be worrying about is like memory keeping, but start. Like, just start. Just do one thing. Figure out what works for you. You don't have to get as elaborate as I do, but yeah, just the earlier the better. It's like that whole planting a tree thing. Like, the best time to do it is like back in the day, but like right now is the next best time. Do it now. Goal number 3 is to continue simplifying my life as much as I can. I've had versions of this on my goal list for the last 10 years, easily. In fact, I did a blog post series called The Obsessive Bookseller Simplifies Life in 2020, 2018, 2012. Really long time ago. And I took like one aspect of my life every month and focused on making it a little easier on myself. But I've come so far from there. Simplifying my life is a focus on every aspect, everything from book collecting to reading to how my sock drawer functions, the best ways to meal plan and cook for my family. We're considering a move, which adds that whole layer of trying to declutter even more and figure out what would be worth taking with us. Which, by the way, if we end up not moving, I will not regret a single thing that I've been letting go during this process. Like, there's something to the method of pretending you're moving and then decluttering accordingly. Anyway, simplification for me is like all of these systems that I'm putting in place. That's great. But for me, it's how do I want to feel every day? Do I want to feel driven by a to-do list, or do I want to kind of just exist in life and feel present, if you will? And I spend most of my time planning ahead and thinking about stuff, and like, yeah, I want to live in the moment more. And a lot of that, like, I have so much stuff to manage. I have 3 young children. It's not going to be perfect, but at least I feel like every year I get a little bit closer. Goal number 9, make this a year of intentional consumption, not counting books. Throwing that out there because that's its own contained little goal. But I ran this challenge last year and kept track of it until about August, where I set myself a goal. I'm only going to buy 100 things this year. So I better make sure that they count. Every time I buy something, I write it down. And while I was doing that, I was also decluttering. And I stopped counting at the decluttered items at about 700 or so. So it felt really good. Obviously, I was getting rid of more than I was bringing back in. And then, you know, birthdays, holiday season, all of that. Like, it's not going well right now, but new year, new time to get going. I really love this challenge. It brings back this intentionality of purchasing. Like, I can only purchase 100 things. Would I really want this one to be one of the things? Like, what value is this supporting by purchasing it? And if I can answer to the value of it, of every single item that I bring in, the number is just arbitrary, but it's a good goalpost. And I'm already one who does not buy a lot of things anyway. You would not know that by my book channel. That's really my only area of spending in my whole life. And it's important to me. So I want to be sustainable. And the 100 item goal thing was a lot of fun to do. Hopefully it'll serve me again this year. And goal number 5, a lot of health related items. Like a lot of the things that most people put on their New Year's resolution lists. But these are things where, like, I don't just New Year's resolution. Every time I get a fire under my rear, I end up changing things around and trying to make my health better. And right now what I'm focusing on is no sugar, which through like 4 birthdays and Christmas and Thanksgiving has not been going well. I regret none of it, but I would also like to do better going forward. I am trying to switch over to mostly a plant-based diet, and I have been having so much fun cooking. I kind of feel like my house is like a restaurant where every week I get to try new dishes off the menu because I'm finally that much more confident in my cooking abilities. So it's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to continue on with that. And honestly, the funny thing is like my plant-based thing came from initially hating handling raw chicken. It's an OCD trigger for me. I hate it so much that I started exploring other things just so I would not have to handle raw chicken anymore. But I'm not hard and fast on that. I just want the majority of my food to be plant-based and to see if gradually over time I can phase out more and more meat products. But we're not giving up enchiladas. I want to cook 4 times per week. That's been going well for several months now. I need to redo my meal planning thing because my diet needs have changed. Like, we've been dealing with a few allergies in the household, and for the longest time I thought I was maybe celiac, but as it turns out, I'm allergic to barley, which they add barley flour to almost everything that contains flour in it. So no wonder when I was eating bread products, I was like itchy and stuff. That seems like way TMI. But there you go. Cook 4 times per week. I want to do 2 cardio per week. Ideally, one of those is a hike that requires more exertion because I love getting outside and hiking. Then Zumba for the other one. I want to weight train 4 times per week. Actually, I have five plus weight training per week. Good luck with that. I love doing it, but I have the hardest time trying to figure out how to put it into my day. Like, my kids don't let up. And it's really weird to be lifting weights at work when other people are around. Like, I have my own office, but I always kind of have to keep like an eye on the door as I'm taking a break to do some weight training that someone's not going to walk in. This is what you do though. If you have a goal and you're really passionate about it, you figure out ways to get it done. But I need some sort of routine. Maybe I weight train before I read, but that's too much to pack into an evening. Anyway, on the emotional and mental side, I would like to get outside for at least 30 minutes per day. Ideally with my kids. Just be outside, feel the wind. Have more fun and indulge myself more, because as Oliver Burkeman explains in Meditations for Mortals, like, you sacrifice so much time, energy, and things right now to make your future self happier and better, but you never cash that in. So I would like to start cashing in some of the hard work that I've done to this point and just let myself be sometimes. Like, I don't always have to have achieved the thing that I set out to do that day. And then last minute thoughts that I wrote down: get a therapist. I lost mine, she moved, that sucked. And become flexible. I would love to become flexible, but the thing is like, you have to actually commit time and energy to nurturing that every day, like practicing yoga. And I went to a yoga class about 3 years ago, and the nice little old lady teacher like stopped me after class and she goes, I couldn't help but notice that you're not particularly flexible. But I went and I tried it. That is a diagnosis from an expert, folks. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I would love to know what some of your goals are, bookish or personal. Going through the motions of figuring out why goals matter to you, I think, is even more important than the goal itself. Like, it just gives your brain a direction to shoot for, and it gives every day an intentionality where you don't feel directionless, like you're actually working towards something, and that kind of thing really motivates me. So here's to a good year of accomplishment and taking it easy on ourselves, and hopefully handling it all with a little bit of grace. Hope to catch you on my next one. Bye.